Now that 2025 is behind us, we can finally turn around and take a look at the aftermath of an admittedly strange year. But when looking back on all the secrets that remain in the shadows of the past, we can't help but ponder these 10 disturbing mysteries that 2025 left behind. Number 10. In modern times, we deal with the passing of loved ones significantly differently from our ancestors. Today, those who passed on are entrusted to a dedicated funeral home, where the deceased is either buried in a polished coffin, or in a marked grave among hundreds of others, or cremated, with their remains gently returned to an urn, or decorative piece and given back to the family. But this is not what happened to hundreds and hundreds of human ashes in 2025. It was the end of July when a local resident of Las Vegas found himself in the rural community of Searchlight, Nevada. Here, he would stumble across something incredibly sinister, a sight that would become the most disturbing mystery of 2025. Strewn across the desert area were piles and piles of gray-white ash. The suspicious scene prompted the individual to make contact with the local authorities, who quickly arrived at the scene. Realizing that these piles were cremated remains, the department handed the situation over to the Bureau of Land Management. By August, the piles had been tallied and totaled at 315. 315 heaps of ash lay strewn across the Nevada desert. Samples were taken from several of them and sent in for testing to confirm who or what the remains came from. The results were instant. They were, in fact, the ashes of humans. Further investigation would uncover a second area containing a few more ashen heaps, located not far from the initial dump site. While it's illegal to scatter ashes on public land, it is by law also required to be done with dignity and care. State law limits the commercial distribution of such remains, making mass dumping illegal. But trying to get justice for such activity has proven much more complicated than anticipated. Authorities have been unable to track down the origins of the cremated remains. It's agreed that they likely came from a funeral parlor that decided to dump hundreds of remains for unclear reasons. One news site suggested that each pile of ash is said to be a person who once lived in the southern Nevada community, but they didn't clarify the meaning behind this any further, nor was it revealed who the sources were that supplied such information. As the investigations pressed on, palm mortuaries and cemeteries came forward to collect the ashes, ensuring that they would eventually be given a proper send-off. Number 9. Something sinister and strange has been afoot in York, Pennsylvania, with the presence of a strange figure who set out to torment the inhabitants of one particular household. It was in the dark of night in March this year that an eerie, childlike mask appeared in the doorbell camera lens of an unnamed resident. The mask, made from an unexpected item, a paper plate, has been made to resemble a colorful flower, with a disturbing face drawn in its center. The individual can be seen carrying a box and setting it down in front of the homeowner's door before approaching the camera, glaring right into it, and uttering some incredibly eerie phrases like, "I am the box demon," and "This box is a gift for you." After several seconds, the unknown lurker slinks back into the darkness, leaving the box on the doorstep with unknown secrets lying within. The following morning, the homeowner would go downstairs to find the peculiar package. It was brought inside and opened only to reveal an empty interior. Confused, the resident reviewed their camera footage and found the disturbing scene marked as having taken place at 4 a.m. Unnerved by what they were seeing, the Northern York County Regional Police Department was immediately contacted. The rattled resident explained that they had no idea who the individual was or what the bizarre costume could mean. They couldn't figure out why someone would target them in this manner either. With no clear, immediate answers, the police began their investigation. Although the box demon may have been nothing more than a mischievous prankster, law enforcement took threatening and menacing presence very seriously. When news of the box demon broke, residents of the same area were left disturbed and creeped out, but none of them seemed to know who was behind it either. They hadn't seen the menace themselves and had nothing suspicious to report. Some days later, after several press releases and appeals for information, something most unexpected happened. The police were able to identify who the masked demon was and reveal their identity to the homeowner, but not to the public. The resident wished not to speak of the matter any further, only adding further suspicion to this already unsettling case. Number 8. Blue Island, Illinois became the unsuspecting location of a most urgent mystery. An urgency that would rattle one family who didn't know that their year would be ending with mounting concerns and a void in the shape of a beloved family man. The mystery begins in the most thunderous manner, the sound of crumpling metal as two cars collide head-on. It was 11:15 on the 24th of November when an unnerving accident unfolded right in front of the Garden Homes Fire Department. Disoriented and injured, both drivers stumbled out of their vehicles, both of which would be written off as a result of the crash. Standing beside his car, assessing the damage and breathing a sigh of relief that he made it out alive, was Daniel Davis III, who was quickly approached by medical personnel. But he refused medical assistance, even though it was suggested that he suffered a head injury. Still, he stood there and watched as his car was towed away. An attending officer offered 59-year-old Daniel a ride and dropped him off on Bourbon Street, where he'd worked for the past 25 years. For unspecified reasons, Daniel lingered in this area until the early hours of the 25th. He'd last be seen in person leaving 115 Bourbon Street in Marionette Park, Illinois at 1:15 a.m. And it was at this very moment the Davis family would be dropped into the depths of a painful saga that would bring them a year's end without a critical part of their family. Daniel's movements for the next 6 hours are unknown, and the next sighting of him would only come at 7:30 a.m. on security cameras. He was seen walking through a yard at Des Plaines and Gregory, where he would hit his head on the sidewalk. This would mark the second injury to Daniel's head following the car accident that left him disoriented. Several hours would go past again, only for the man to show up at 13,217 Old Western Avenue at 3 p.m. He approached a few passers-by, asking how to get to Bourbon Street, where he'd come from a few hours before. He was seen heading east on Long Grove Avenue after that, and appeared to be heading toward Old Western Avenue. At 4:20 p.m., he'd be captured on security cameras again, this time at 127th and Greenwood, and it was now clear that Daniel was not himself and had become disoriented and confused as a result of the collision. The cameras captured him ambling along the sidewalk and looking into the bed of a parked truck. Almost 2 hours later, he was seen at 127th and Kedzie at a Pilot gas station, only this time his face was red-stained. The 25th marked the second day that Daniel had been ambling along, needing medical assistance, with no one helping him. The next sighting of him would be on day 3, when at 6:35 p.m. he was spotted on surveillance cameras at St. Donat's Church in the 19,000 block of South Union Street in Blue Island. Confused and in desperate need of medical attention, this would be the last confirmed sighting of Daniel Davis III. By now, his family was beginning to worry, and had already notified the police of his absence. But for 3 days of his obvious presence in the streets, no one would recognize him as the missing man. And now it was too late. An urgent notice was released to the public, and rescue authorities rushed to the locations of at least 10 CCTV sightings, only to find nothing. One Cook County Canine Unit sniffer dog was able to pick up his scent at the church where the last sighting had come from. The dog led the police from the church to an entry point in a fence beneath the 127th Street Bridge. The bridge led to a rail yard, but after this, the trail would go cold. The scent was lost, and so was Daniel. Information regarding this urgent disappearance can be directed to Area 2 SVU at 312-747-8274. Number 7. It may sound like a harmless joke that bananas keep appearing in one particular street, but for the residents who lived there, it was absolute mayhem. The smell of rotting fruit has left homeowners disturbed and volunteer litter pickers annoyed. The mystery is set in a small Nottinghamshire town known as Beeston. Every second day of the month, a plate of peeled bananas mysteriously appears on the corner of Abbey Road and Windsor Avenue. a bizarre tradition that has evoked many questions that remain unanswered. The reason behind this ritual is unknown, and residents say that they've never seen anyone actually place the peculiar offering there. This is particularly unusual given that some homeowners have security cameras and doorbell cameras, but this exact spot seems to be in a convenient blind spot. The amount of bananas being offered is bewildering. There's at least 15 to 20 of them, each of which is peeled and neatly stacked together. The presence of the banana platters has understandably spawned many theories among the neighbors, who've been wondering who's behind the phenomenon and why. Some have pointed out that the bananas are being placed right across the street from a church, suggesting that the offering may be religious in nature. Others disagree, bringing up the possibility that the food is being left there for local wildlife. Yet each month, the bananas go uneaten and are left to rot and mold, and someone else is forced to clean up the mess. Those who are particularly disturbed by this mystery believe that it's nothing more than a prank, a joke that's merely meant to annoy the neighborhood. None of these theories, though, seem to explain why the bananas show up the second day of the month, or why the person placing them there has never been seen. Adding another layer to this mystery, no one, despite a significant amount of news coverage, has owned up to it. The enigma dominated headlines in February as the strangeness continued. While no laws have been broken here, local law enforcement can't really do much about bananas plaguing this quiet, unassuming town of Beeston, Nottinghamshire. Number 6. It was the 14th of January, 2025, when an individual wearing casual nighttime attire showed up outside the Eclectics Antique Mall in Ohio. They weren't there to window shop in the stillness of the night, but instead came bearing an unlikely gift: grease. It was between 4:45 a.m. and 5:30 a.m., the early morning sun casting a glow across the background, forcing the hooded figure in the foreground to remain contrasted. In a shocking video, the perpetrator can be seen approaching the door with a bowl held steadily in one hand. The initially unknown liquid flows from the bowl as the camouflaged vandal tipped it over. The door handles and glass panes got soaked in a thick, slimy layer of grease. It wasn't just any grease either. It was old, fatty grease used to fry a batch of chicken wings. It was clear that this wasn't just some bizarre accident. The grease vandal had come with intent and defaced the establishment. Hours later, unsuspecting staff members arrive at their workplace, only to find an absolute mess right at the door. Confounded by what they were experiencing, they checked the security cameras, only to find something quite disturbing. Although unnerved by the event, the staff members cleaned up the grease and went about their day. Eventually, they forgot about the grease vandal, but it turns out they're not a one-time offender. On the 26th of February, the assailant returned to the antique mall with more grease in hand. It was between 2 and 3 a.m. when the cloaked figure showed up, dressed in similar attire that obscured their identity. The grease was poured over the door in the same manner as before. Hours later, staff members would arrive and place their hands on the sticky oil, realizing that the onslaught of the grease vandal was not over. Again, they cleaned up the mess and checked the security cameras. Still, the individual was obscured by the blackness. Several months would pass without any signs of the vandal or any greasy substances on the doors. Then, on the 29th of May, between 1 and 2 a.m., the grease vandal was back. The door was once again drenched in oil, and the veiled figure retreated into the shadows where they would remain anonymous. The Antiques Mall finally had enough. They posted on social media and news outlets, highlighting the bizarre ordeal they were forced to endure for the past few months. They're appealing to nearby shops and homeowners for any possible information that can lead to the identification of this individual. They're asking anyone and everyone in the High Street area between Como, Brighton, Lakeview, and Longview to check their camera footage on the given dates. Amid trying to find out who the grease vandal is, they also find themselves pondering another question. Why are they doing this? Number 5. Northern Ireland has had its fair share of peculiarities this year too. One such mystery would take place in late December of 2025, with the sudden presence of the Yellow Man, a local man from Northern Ireland's village of Kilry. Gerard McFerrin was heading down Vow Road in the early morning hours of the 27th of December. It was around 12:30 when he spotted something strange walking along the roadside. McFerrin's attention was caught by the bright yellow clothing that the figure was wearing. Suspicious about what he was seeing, he quickly pulled out his phone and started recording. He planned to confront the yellow-clad man, but would find himself wanting to get out of there as quickly as possible. Aside from the bright raincoat, matching pants and boots, the figure was additionally wearing a white mask and a black wig, concealing his identity as he made his way through the darkness. Though he was incredibly frightened, McFerrin questioned the yellow man. He asked why he was dressed in this way, but the figure merely ignored him and walked on. Upon being pressed further, the unidentified man finally uttered a sentence, but it didn't make much sense. McFerrin claimed the man said something along the lines of, "It wasn't him," but he wasn't sure what he meant by this. He also allegedly claimed that he couldn't take the mask off, and that he was staying with a friend. The entire encounter made very little sense, and it left McFerrin, and subsequently the whole village, with the suspicious, creeped-out feeling. In fact, the encounter was so strange that the police began carrying out foot patrols in several areas around Kilry, Resharkin, and Dunloy. McFerrin's video wasn't the only time that the yellow man was seen either. Police officers have been actively following a string of similar reports and encounters of this strange man appearing in these areas. These encounters have come about after the initial video was released online. Residents of the area have entered the comments section of the shared video, revealing that they had seen the man too and thought he was suspicious. Yet, despite the numerous sightings of the yellow man, he remains unapprehended and unapproached by officers who haven't seen the man since the patrols began. The yellow man's presence has caused quite a stir online and has instilled fear in the younger populations who often walk to school. While the figure has not done anything directly harmful or illegal, authorities would still like to know what the deal is with this strange costume and what his intentions in the village may be. With this case being investigated with all seriousness, the police have continued to patrol the grounds and have asked the public to report any sightings of the yellow man, but not to engage with him. Each report is taken seriously, and the people of Northern Ireland are encouraged to call 999 if they see anything suspicious, out of the ordinary, or if they feel threatened or are concerned about the welfare of an individual. Number 4. Methusele Moyo is a veteran journalist who's now an esteemed lecturer at the National University of Science and Technology in Zimbabwe. As a science professor, Moyo never really believed in the supernatural and always thought that everything had a scientific explanation. Unexpectedly, the lecturer would find this very belief system being challenged in March of 2025, when a series of inexplicable ordeals left him thinking that he was being haunted. It was in the early days of March when something strange erupted in his home. Flames would randomly erupt in his home, engulfing several items over a 6-week time frame, including the very clothing on his back. At first, there were only 1 or 2 isolated incidents, leaving Moyo thinking that they were just random fires caused by electronics or power issues. But the strange, inexplicable fires, seemingly with no cause, continued and soon became unbearable. The frequency and chaos have been tormenting the professor ever since. Moyo has lost 2 couches since the strange fires began. Several important documents have also been charred, and most of his formal clothes have been left unwearable. At times, Moyo himself has been engulfed in flames and cries out for his family to help him. Family members react by pouring cold water on him, successfully dousing the flames. In the aftermath, blisters begin to emerge, leaving him with scars and burns all over his body. The former editor of the Chronicle eventually decided to speak out about his harrowing ordeal that's been haunting him. His decision came after an unfortunate loss of a great sum of money, which was kept in his wardrobe. Allegedly, a fire began inside of it, turning his cash to ash. The money came from a recent sale of a house in Rangemore, which he wanted to use to complete their newly built house that was still under construction. Oddly, the money was the only thing that was burned. The wooden cupboard was left intact, and none of the clothes that hung inside had been touched. Reluctantly, Moyo was forced to accept that something truly inexplicable was happening here, something that science didn't seem to have an answer for. As a last resort, he turned to prophets and traditional healers, but they couldn't help him either. They merely told him he was being cursed by an aggrieved individual. He's now at wit's end and can't seem to figure out who would want to do something like this to him. Moyo also doesn't believe in such things, so accepting that he's being intentionally cursed has been an idea that he's been struggling with. Without knowing who his vengeful tormentor is, Moyo has begged them to come forward, asking to make amends, but the torturous infernos persist. Number 3. Where is Larry Burton, the patient with dementia, who's been living in an unlicensed care facility that's since been shut down? L&L Family Care is located at 1215 Moody Street in Greensboro, North Carolina. The establishment is an assisted living facility that's been operating without the necessary documentation. According to North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, the facility has not been registered with the NCDHHS Division of Health Service Regulation. It would be from this very unlicensed business that 74-year-old Larry would inexplicably vanish, leaving his family questioning not only the validity of the establishment, but its owner too. It was 10:30 p.m. on the 2nd of July, 2025, when Larry was last seen at L&L Family Care home. No one really knows what happened after this. No one saw him walk out the door or leave with anyone else. At 7:15 the following morning, with no sign of the patient, who'd been there for only 8 days after being released from Moses Cone Hospital, the establishment made contact with the Greensboro Police Department and reported an unexpected disappearance. It was through this event that the truth about the facility would come out, resulting in a dark aura of suspicion lingering around the building. Larry's family was swiftly notified of the incident, and it was then that police realized just how urgent finding the now missing man was. Not only does he suffer from dementia, but he also has diabetes, for which he requires medication that he left the facility without. In a dire effort to locate him, the police department grouped together with a local canine search unit, and one of the dogs managed to pick up a scent. Law enforcement was led to McConnell Road and Banner Avenue, but the tracker dog soon lost the scent. The area, though, was at least a starting point and revealed the direction in which Larry had traveled. The Greensboro Police Department has since reached out to those who reside in Barber Park and Gateway Gardens, insisting that they check their properties. It's been several months since, and no one has come forward with any tips. Loved ones have since set up a Facebook page dedicated to finding their missing beloved family member. A volunteer search was carried out on the 19th of July at 816 South Elm Street, but no additional clues would surface, leaving the at-risk individual lost and alone. Information regarding this missing person can be directed to the Greensboro Police Department at 336-373-2287. Number 2. Something quite unnervingly distinct has been lurking in the shadows of a small British town, leaving the locals in a state of bewilderment and panic. Everyone in the Liverpool suburb of Wallasey has been seeing a strange shadowy entity, and now people are trying to hunt him down. The figure is said to be a man wearing a black cat gimp suit that obscures his identity. He lurks about in the shadows behind gravestones and in thick bushes. If his presence alone wasn't unsettling enough, the menacing mystery man has also felt the need to intentionally frighten the residents by unexpectedly leaping from his hiding places and letting out a startling meow. His victims are left clutching their chest, wide-eyed and in a state of shock as Panther Man makes a swift getaway, retreating menacingly into the dimly lit areas, waiting for his next victim. Those who've spotted the mischievous prankster have managed to grab a couple of photos of him, which they've then shared on public domains as they appealed for information that could lead to the capture of this stray. Several images and videos have revealed his never-before-seen behavior. He writhes on the ground, crawls on all fours, and grabs attention from onlookers by meowing like a cat. One video even showed Panther Man slipping beneath a rickety fence near a local pub, while another captured him crawling up a hill on his hands and knees. Residents claim that the figure's presence has not only left them in an inconsolable state, but it's even left their dogs too frightened to go on routine walks, worried that the latex-clad man may hurl himself out from behind a tree, making disturbing noises that echo into the night. Bizarrely, this isn't the first time that the UK has been subject to such barbarity. Panther Man has reminded the inhabitants of Wallasey of the 2023 mystery of the Somerset Gimp. A 32-year-old British man named Joshua Hunt was behind the display. He wore a Gimp mask and terrified the community. He'd later be caught, fined, and banned from wearing a mask for the next 5 years. Residents now have their hands full again with the presence of Panther Man, who, despite his scary appearance, is believed to be harmless. With no legal lines being crossed, authorities can do very little about the situation. There's just a man playing dress-up and unleashing havoc on the town, and the only lines he's crossing are personal ones. Number 1. Britain really seems to have some bad luck over the last few years when it comes to menacing individuals with ill intentions. First it was the Somerset Gimp, now it's Panther Man. And in the quiet street of Woolton, it's a harrowing campaign of poison pen letters. The cozy town of Woolton, Liverpool, has been listed as the best place to live in the Northwest. There's a strong sense of community there, independent businesses that are thriving, and a family-friendly atmosphere. Yet it would be this charming suburb that's been subjected to quite the threatening ordeal. In the small village, there's a street called Allerton Road, whose residents would become the very victims of anonymous abusive letters, likened to the poison pen letters of the early 20th century socio-criminal phenomenon. The letters, similar in tone and appearance, are clearly the work of one author. The mysterious writer has been using 2 different fonts and sending these letters to the residents of Allerton Road via post, and has never delivered a single one by hand. He also makes use of a first-class stamp. Each letter has a computer-typed, printed-out address taped to the envelope. Residents have drawn similarities between this random onslaught of threatening notes and films like Wicked Little Letters, or Bridgerton's Lady Whistledown's troublemaking. Those who've received the anonymous letters, of which there are at least 20 households, have expressed just how sinister these letters are. They're almost always signed off with an ominous line that reads, "If you don't do what I say, there's going to be repercussions," or variations of this. One resident had received 4 letters, one of which told him that his car was parked in a hazardous and inconsiderate manner. He was instructed that if he didn't move the vehicle or park it to his liking, then he would report the matter. The writer, though, didn't report the matter, and instead took the issue into his own hands by allegedly keying the man's car. But the owner had no evidence as to who it was, so the case of Liverpool's poison pen letters remained. Another resident was told that they were noisy and rude, claiming that there's a constant noise being made in their yard throughout the evening. They said, quote, "This is your first and last warning. Believe me, there will be trouble." The letters have continued to appear in the streets, and it's obvious that one of the neighbors is likely behind the sinister notes that are causing so much distress in those households. Myerside police have launched an investigation into the issue and have gathered as much information as they can, but their inquiries have led nowhere. The poison pen letter writer continues to smother the community, threatening serious harm and sometimes carrying it out against his victim's property. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.